Okay, so I haven't done this for some time, but keeping in the track of political thinking, I thought I may as well continue this. My Prime Minister series. Um, Notwithstanding the previous videos I've made in the last few days, this series of videos is intended to be as neutral as possible. I'm simply reciting facts here. Of sheer historical interest, because I believe a lot of our earlier prime ministers have been they're not sort of household names, and I think that it's an important part of our history. So I've got up to Prime Minister number 17. That is Spencer Perceval. So a bit of background to Spencer Perceval. He was born in 1762 in Mayfair, London. He was a Tory. He belonged to the Conservative Party. The Tories, as they then were, I should say, this was before the modern Conservative Party was founded. He was the youngest son of an Irish earl, was educated at Harrow School and Trinity College, Cambridge. His background was in law, and in the administration of Henry Addington, he served as Attorney General and Chancellor of the Exchequer, as well as leader of the House of Commons in the Portland administration. Um, he refused to join the Ministry of All Talents under Lord Grenville because Charles Fox was part of that ministry and he was a political opponent. So instead, he decided to join the Pittite faction against Fox. This is from the 10 Downing Street website. Some information about Perceval. During a debate on corrupt electoral practices, I have nothing to say to the nothing that has been said. A professional lawyer, he made his mark by holding down the senior posts of Solicitor General and Attorney General. And in marriage of William Pitt the Younger, he was politically conservative and an active Anglican, opposing Catholic emancipation. When the Duke of Portland put together a coalition with the Tories in 1807, Perceval served as Chancellor of the Exchequer and leader of the House of Commons. With the Duke of Portland old and unwell, Perceval was effectively the chief minister and even lived at 10 Downing Street. That's something I didn't know, actually. In 1809, he formally succeeded the Duke of Portland as Prime Minister. It was a difficult time due to the upheavals of the Industrial Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars, and the final descent of George III into mental illness. His government also suffered from the absence of most of the senior statesmen of the period. He had to serve as his own Chancellor after obtaining 6 refusals of office. Bear in mind, Pitt the Younger had died in 1806. After 2 years, his government had survived much longer than predicted in a severe economic depression. Indeed, it began to seem that the situation of his government was set to improve. But his administration ended dramatically on the 11th of May 1812 when he was shot dead in the lobby of the House of Commons on the way to an inquiry into the recent Luddite riots. His last words were appropriately, "Oh, I have been murdered." The assassin was John Bellingham, a merchant who had incurred business debts in Russia. He had tried to recover compensation from the government for his losses, but was refused. He therefore sought revenge on a representative of that government and carried out his dark wish. Percival's body rested in 10 Downing Street for 5 days, mourned by his wife and 12 children. Bellingham was later tried and hanged for his murder. And I've looked a lot into this case, and apparently for a long time afterwards, the family of Bellingham had to change their name because they didn't want to be associated with an assassin of a prime minister. Um, Perceval is unique in this regard. He's the only prime minister to have been assassinated, although there have been attempts on other prime ministers. There's been attempts on Margaret Thatcher, on John Major. I believe Robert Peel survived several attempts, so he's not the only prime minister to had attempts on his life, but he is notable as the only prime minister to have actually been fatally assassinated. Um, but I think it would be wrong to remember Percival solely for that reason, although it's an important reason. Um, he was said to be a humble man. He was said to be different from a lot of the sort of blue bloods of his day or the other parliamentarians of his day. He didn't like gambling. He didn't like drinking. He was a very religious man. He had a large family, 11 children. He was a pallbearer at the funeral of Pitt the Younger, good friend of Pitt the Younger's. Um, and it said that with his assassination, people had muted responses to the execution of Henry Bellingham. Um, on one hand, they didn't want to appear to be jubilant that the man had killed the prime minister. On the other hand, Perceval was not a particularly popular prime minister, and he oversaw an incredibly difficult economic period. It's worth noting the time he was in office was roughly the same as the time that Gordon Brown was in office. Brown was slightly longer, but that's Spencer Perceval, the 17th prime minister and the only prime minister so far to have been assassinated. Um, He died in 1812 and was buried in Westminster. He was only 49 when he died, which makes him, I believe, the second or third youngest Prime Minister after Pitt the Younger and Lord Grenville, or at least after Pitt the Younger. So that is Spencer Perceval. There was a band recently called I Like Trains who featured him in a song. I'm not sure if there's ever been any films made about Percival or accounting his assassination, but bear in mind he was in office for almost 3 years, so it would be a historical inaccuracy to just remember him solely for that event, although it is an important one. That's Spencer Percival.